Imagine an artificial intelligence that doesn't just read the internet,
Right.
but actively reads your screen, your private text messages, your encrypted emails, and your bank statements.
All at the exact same time.
Exactly. Simultaneously cross-referencing all of it in real time to execute your daily job. Welcome to the bite size, the tech news TLDR.
We are skipping the conversational fluff today.
Oh, absolutely, because the facts on the ground right now are moving way faster than the market can fully price in.
Yeah, the landscape we are analyzing today is just, undergoing a massive synchronized mutation.
Yeah, so the bottom line goal of this deep dive is extracting the raw data from the absolute latest tech leaks and press releases. We are explaining the exact real-world implications, the corporate security concerns, and the immediate productivity impacts for you, the modern professional.
Because we aren't looking at linear incremental updates anymore.
No, not at all.
We're looking at a fundamental rewrite of how software, hardware, and local infrastructure interact.
Which is why we really need to frame this entire deep dive around one specific concept, and that is bottlenecks.
Bottlenecks, exactly.
Every major tech development dropping right now is an attempt to solve a specific critical jam in the data pipeline.
Right. So Apple is desperately trying to remove the software bottleneck with a complete reboot of Siri in iOS 27.
Right, the June 8th unveiling.
Yep. Then you have Elon Musk and Tesla trying to physically remove the hardware computing bottleneck with that massive facility, Terafab.
Which is just staggering in scale.
It really is. And finally, MSI is trying to remove the local network bottleneck with their new Wi-Fi 7 infrastructure. Because, you can't have the software revolution without the brute force hardware scaling.
And you can't access any of that offsite compute if your local network is just choking on the data.
Exactly. So let's start with the software bottleneck, because that's the most immediate friction point for the end user, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have these incredibly powerful language models, but the interfaces we use to interact with them are, well, they're clunky.
They really are. In Apple's upcoming Worldwide Developers Conference on June 8th, where they're integrating the new Siri into iOS 27, iPadOS 27, and macOS 27, it's basically a direct admission that the old interface paradigm just failed.
Let's break down exactly what that visual and functional evolution looks like for the user, because it's a big shift.
A very big shift.
Like the glowing screen edges that Apple introduced back in iOS 18, those are completely gone.
Yeah, RAP to the glowing edges.
Right. Instead, Siri will now live permanently in the dynamic island as this glowing icon accompanied by a pill-shaped searching indicator.
Right.
And when a request is actually processed, that dynamic island physically expands downward into a larger translucent panel.
Which Apple is calling their liquid glass design.
Liquid glass, yeah.
Yeah.
And you literally pull this panel down to converse.
Which is fascinating because the mechanism behind this visual shift is fundamentally psychological.
How so?
Well, think about it. The glowing edges from iOS 18 implied that Siri was this ambient wrapper around your phone.
Ah.
Like a passive listener.
Oh, I see. Like it's just everywhere and nowhere.
Exactly. But by consolidating the AI into the dynamic island and giving it this persistent, physical liquid glass presence that you have to actively pull down, Apple is signaling a shift in locus.
A shift in locus. Okay, meaning what for the user?
Meaning the AI is no longer a hidden utility you just summon blindly. It is an active, localized, persistent entity taking up actual physical real estate on your screen.
But the visual tweak to the dynamic island isn't really the core of the software unblocking, is it?
No, not at all. It's just the surface.
Right, because the actual structural change is that Apple is introducing a dedicated standalone Siri app.
Finally.
Right. And this interface, it features a grid of rounded rectangles with text previews, looking very much like an iMessage thread filled with chat bubbles.
It's a very familiar UI for a reason.
Yeah. And you can toggle seamlessly between text and voice. You can pin your favorite chats, save continuous histories.
And most importantly, for a professional workflow, you can upload raw attachments.
Yes. Photos, financial PDFs, slide decks, you can upload them for the AI to analyze natively.
And to understand why this standalone app exists, you really have to look at the timeline. Because Siri's overhaul has been delayed repeatedly.
Yeah, it was originally slated for WWDC 2024, right?
Right. Then it was pushed to spring 2025, and now it's finally arriving in fall 2026.
Which is a massive delay in the tech world.
Massive. But the delay wasn't just about getting the code right. It was, frankly, an existential pivot.
An Existential pivot,
And
meaning they realized they were losing.
basically, yeah. Apple realized that a localized, ephemeral command and response tool where you ask a question, get an answer, and then the interface just vanishes, that could not survive against ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude.
Because people want to see the history.
Exactly. They're building a persistent conversational environment that directly rivals those third-party apps, but
Yeah.
with one unparalleled advantage:
Which is,
having native root-level access to the operating system itself.
okay, wait, I have to challenge this exact point right here.
Okay. Yeah.
If we look back at 2025, Apple's head of software engineering, Craig Federighi, explicitly stated that Apple did not want to send users, and I'm quoting here, off into some chat experience just to get things done.
I remember that quote perfectly.
Right. His whole thesis was that AI should be invisible and integrated. So why this sudden glaring reversal to a standalone chat app? I mean, is this a panic move forced by OpenAI's market dominance?
I mean, you could call it a panic move, but it is absolutely a pragmatic concession to human behavior.
Okay, how so?
Federighi's initial vision of an invisible, omnipresent AI is theoretically elegant and sounds great on stage, but it ignores how professionals actually synthesize complex information.
Because we need to look back at things.
Right. Humans rely heavily on spatial memory. When you are working through a complex legal brief or, say, a quarterly financial strategy with an AI,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be able to scroll up.
You need to see the work.
Exactly. You need to verify what the AI concluded 3 days ago about a specific variable. A voice command that just vanishes into the ether prevents long-term, multi-day workflows.
Ah, I see. So Apple recognized that they were basically losing the power user demographic to OpenAI.
Simply because a dedicated chat thread acts as a permanent, evolving workspace.
Okay, but creating that permanent workspace introduces a massive, glaring vulnerability.
Oh, absolutely. The security side is wild.
Think about what a standalone Siri app means for corporate security. We are talking about a central, highly searchable repository of all your past interactions, all your uploaded attachments, and your exact data queries.
All stored in one localized app.
Right. If you are a financial analyst or an M&A lawyer, uploading sensitive documents to ChatGPT always carried a massive corporate security risk.
Which is why so many firms banned it.
Exactly. And Apple is pitching this standalone app as the secure alternative. But, I mean, if an attacker compromises your device, they don't just get access to a folder of random PDFs anymore.
No, it's much worse than that.
They get a synthesized, searchable history of your exact thought process, your strategic priorities, and the specific data you were analyzing. It's a goldmine.
It really is. The data liability shift here is profound. With a standard file system, a bad actor has to sift through thousands of documents to figure out the narrative.
Which takes time and expertise.
Right. But with a localized, persistent AI chat history, the intelligence is already distilled for them. You essentially created an executive summary of your most sensitive corporate maneuvers, localized on a piece of glass in your pocket.
Which is terrifying.
It is, and this is exactly why Apple has tied the standalone app so deeply to the secure enclave on the device's silicon.
Okay, so the encryption keys are hardware-bound.
Yes, the encryption keys for that specific Siri chat history are hardware-bound. But you are completely correct. If the biometric authentication is somehow bypassed, the contextual damage an attacker can do is orders of magnitude higher than before.
Which brings us to how this AI actually interacts with the rest of the data on your phone. Because, let's be honest, a persistent chat thread is just a glorified text box if it doesn't fundamentally accelerate your actual work.
Right. It has to actually do things.
And Apple is doing that by entirely replacing its traditional Spotlight search system with this new iteration of Siri.
It's a total replacement.
Yeah, and they are doing it through a new system-wide feature called Ask Siri. This is a toggle that appears in the contextual menus across all built-in apps.
Which is a huge workflow shift.
Huge. It allows you to select on-screen content, say a paragraph of an email or a chart in a spreadsheet, and send it straight into a Siri conversation.
Without copy-pasting.
Right. Plus, there is also a Write with Siri option physically integrated into the top of the iOS keyboard, surfacing Apple's text generation and editing tools universally.
And the mechanism powering all of this is what Apple calls personal context.
Personal context, how does that work under the hood?
Well, to answer your queries accurately, the system is continuously indexing your messages, your notes, your emails, and your upcoming calendar appointments.
Oh, wow. So it's constantly reading everything.
Yes, it builds a localized semantic graph of your life and your work.
But the holy grail of this integration has to be the new app intents software architecture.
Oh, without a doubt. App intents is the game changer.
Because Siri will use app intents to precisely control functions within both Apple and third-party applications. We're talking about the ability to navigate interfaces, select submenus, and literally scroll through content purely via voice or an automated text prompt.
And to really understand the mechanism of app intents, you have to realize how apps traditionally communicate.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Previously, if Siri wanted to do something in a third-party app, it relied on a rigid, hard-coded API.
Right, like a specific bridge.
Exactly. The developer had to explicitly build a bridge for one specific action, like order a coffee or play a song.
Very limited.
Extremely.
Yeah.
But app intents changes the architecture entirely. It exposes the entire semantic tree of the application's user interface to the operating system.
Okay, a semantic tree meaning what exactly for the AI?
Meaning, Siri isn't just blindly clicking screen coordinates based on a guess. It is actually reading the code of the app's interface, understanding that a specific block of pixels represents a submit button or a reply field, and interacting with it exactly as a human would.
That is wild. Let's ground this in a highly specific daily scenario for the listener so they can really picture this.
Yeah, let's do a workflow example.
Imagine you are sitting in an airport lounge reviewing a highly sensitive vendor contract on your iPad. You're reading through the PDF, and you spot this convoluted indemnification clause that looks entirely new.
Classic legal headache.
Right. Now, normally, instead of copying that text, opening a browser, logging into an enterprise AI tool, pasting it in, and hoping it's secure.
Which takes forever and is a compliance nightmare.
Exactly. Under the new system, you simply highlight the clause right there in the PDF. The Ask Siri toggle pops up. You hit it and instruct Siri, check my localized Apple Notes for the previous terms I agreed to with the specific vendor last quarter.
And it does this instantly.
Instantly. Siri scans your private encrypted notes, finds the previous contract, compares the two clauses, and flags the exact legal discrepancy on your screen.
And the workflow doesn't stop at just the synthesis. Because of that system-wide integration we talked about, you then use the Write with Siri tool to instantly draft an email counterproposal to the vendor.
Directly within your mail client.
Directly in the mail client, incorporating the precise legal language Siri just found.
So you have executed a multi-step, cross-application legal analysis and response without ever once switching apps.
Or exposing your raw data to a public cloud server.
Man, the efficiency there is just undeniable. I mean, it's the difference between the old Siri, which acted like a basic librarian who just fetched the specific book you asked for,
Right.
and the new Siri, which acts like an elite executive assistant.
Yeah.
This assistant reads the book, cross-references it with your private locked filing cabinet, highlights the critical discrepancies, and drafts an actionable battle plan right on your desk.
It's a great analogy. But for an executive assistant to have that level of autonomy, they have to be allowed into the locked filing cabinet.
Which is the scary part. Letting an AI actively read your screen, scroll your menus, and parse through your raw, unencrypted emails. I mean, that requires a level of access that terrifies corporate compliance officers.
Oh, it keeps them up at night.
Yeah.
And this deep systemic access is exactly why this technology took so long to deploy.
Because they had to figure out how to lock it down.
Exactly. To prevent a compliance nightmare for Fortune 500 companies, Apple had to ensure the parsing of this sensitive data happens entirely on the local silicon.
Meaning right there on the iPhone or iPad chip.
Right. Because if Apple were taking constant invisible screenshots of your financial contracts and sending them to a server farm to process what you were looking at, it would violate nearly every data privacy law in existence.
Oh, completely.
So the foundational requirement for app intents in personal context to even exist is that the inference, the actual thinking and analyzing of the screen, is computed locally on the device's neural engine.
But, and this is the big but, a smartphone battery and a mobile chip have hard physical limits.
Oh, absolutely. Physics always wins.
You cannot run a trillion-parameter large language model entirely on an iPhone without melting the chassis in about 3 minutes.
It would literally catch fire.
Right, which forces us to look under the hood at the engine room of iOS 27. Apple is powering these local features with updated versions of their in-house algorithms, known as Apple Foundation models.
Right.
But they aren't doing it alone. These local models are being developed alongside and deeply integrated with technology from Google Gemini.
Yeah, the famous $1 billion partnership.
Exactly. The deal confirmed back in 2025. Siri is using this hybrid engine to provide detailed web responses, complex synthesis, and deep daily news summaries pulled from Apple News to compete directly with platforms like Perplexity.
The architecture of this hybrid system is brilliant, honestly, but it's very complex. You
Yeah.
essentially have two distinct brains operating simultaneously.
Okay, walk us through the two brains.
So you have the Apple Foundation models, which are relatively small, highly optimized models. We're likely looking at the 3 to 7 billion parameter range.
So small in the AI world.
Very small. But they are trained specifically to be exceptional at one thing, understanding the iOS environment.
Ah.
They handle the app intents, the screen reading, the personal context. They are the highly secure, localized brain. But as you pointed out, a 7 billion parameter model does not have the capacity to memorize the entire internet.
Right. It doesn't know the geopolitical history of a specific region or the closing stock price of a mid-cap company from 10 minutes ago.
Exactly.
So when I ask a question that requires that vast external knowledge, how does the system hand that off without exposing my local data?
This is where it gets clever. The Apple Foundation model basically acts as an intelligent router. It parses your prompt and makes a split-second decision. Do I have the information locally to answer this, or do I need the cloud?
And if it needs the cloud?
If it requires open web synthesis, the local model seamlessly pings the Google Gemini API. It sends the query to Google's massive server farms, retrieves the synthesized answer, and pipes it back into the Siri Liquid Glass interface.
But hold on, hold on. By integrating Google Gemini, a direct competitor's model, into the absolute core of iOS 27, isn't Apple essentially waving the white flag?
I mean, a lot of people see it that way.
Aren't they admitting that they entirely lost the foundational LLM race? And more pressingly, if I'm a professional, how do I know my highly sensitive query isn't being permanently absorbed into Google's training data the second Siri routes it to Gemini?
Okay, those are two massive questions. So the first point, yes, it is a staggering admission of reality. Apple recognized that spending tens of billions of dollars to build massive server farms to scrape the open web, which, remember, is Google's core historical competency.
Right, search is what they do.
Exactly. Apple realized that was a losing battle that fundamentally clashed with their privacy-centric brand identity. Choosing to partner, to essentially rent the world's most powerful open web brain, allows Apple to focus solely on the localized hardware-software integration where they actually excel.
Okay, I get that. But what about the security of that handoff?
That comes down to the strict zero-retention data policies mandated by that $1 billion contract.
Zero retention, meaning they don't keep anything.
Supposedly, when the Apple Foundation model routes a query to Gemini, the mechanism actively sanitizes the prompt first. It strips away your IP address, your Apple ID, and any identifiable metadata.
Okay, so it's scrubbing the footprint.
Right. Google receives a sterile anonymous text string, processes it, returns the answer, and is contractually obligated to instantly delete the query without training on it.
Okay, but
But the human element remains the ultimate vulnerability here.
exactly what I was thinking.
If a user manually types a highly confidential client name and sensitive financial figures into a prompt and asks Siri to search the web for companies with a similar financial profile,
The Apple router will send that entire raw text string to Google.
because you explicitly asked it to search the web. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Zero retention contracts are robust, sure, but for a professional, the rule remains absolute. If the query requires an internet search, you must assume the data is leaving the building.
And when that data leaves the building, it hits a physical wall.
A massive physical wall.
Right. We are talking about hundreds of millions of iOS devices simultaneously relying on localized neural engines while constantly pinging Google's cloud servers for massive data synthesis.
It's an unfathomable amount of data.
And all of these models require staggering, almost incomprehensible amounts of computing power. Which brings us to the second bottleneck in our framework.
A hardware constraint.
The hardware constraint. Right now, analysts universally agree that chip fabrication and high bandwidth memory supply are the single greatest constraints on the advancement of global AI. Without a doubt.
I mean, the chip industry is currently hard capped at roughly a 20% output growth rate per year. That is nowhere near enough to fuel the software demands Apple and Google are generating.
And that 20% growth cap isn't just a financial limitation, it's a physical and structural one.
How so?
The supply chain for advanced AI chips is incredibly fragile. Think about it. You have companies designing chips in California, relying on highly specialized, extreme ultraviolet lithography machines built solely by ASML in the Netherlands.
Right, the EUV machines.
Right. And they use those to print the chips at TSMC foundries in Taiwan before shipping them elsewhere for advanced packaging.
It's hopping all over the globe.
A disruption at any single node in this global supply chain halts the entire industry.
Which is exactly what Elon Musk is trying to bypass entirely.
Yes, he is.
Musk has officially unveiled the TerraFab project. This is located at the former Seahome power plant site in Austin, Texas. And it is a massive, unprecedented collaboration between Tesla and SpaceX.
The scale of TerraFab is it's hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
It really is. Because TerraFab is designed to integrate the entire supply chain into a single, localized complex. We are talking chip design, silicon fabrication, mask production, advanced packaging, and rigorous testing all happening under one roof.
Vertical integration taken to the absolute extreme.
Exactly. And the stated goal of this facility is to produce over 1 terawatt of computing capacity annually.
1 terawatt.
Yeah. This compute is earmarked to power Tesla's autonomous vehicles, the Optimus humanoid robots, and complex space-based AI applications for SpaceX.
Right.
And major analysts, including Wedbush's Dan Ives, are pointing to this massive shared infrastructure as the definitive first step toward a formal corporate merger between Tesla and SpaceX by 2027.
Which would reshape the tech landscape entirely. The sheer scale of what Musk is attempting with vertical integration cannot be overstated here.
Why is this so crucial?
By attempting to localize fabrication, mass production, and packaging in Austin, he's trying to completely insulate his companies from the geopolitical risks of the Taiwan Strait.
Right. Removing the geopolitical bottleneck.
Exactly. If TerraFab succeeds, Tesla and SpaceX will no longer be waiting in line behind Apple and NVIDIA for TSMC's limited fabrication bandwidth. They will control their own destiny in the AI arms race.
Let's dig into the specific metric Musk is using here because it's a profound shift in how we talk about tech.
Yeah, the terawatt metric.
Right. He didn't say TerraFab will produce a certain number of chips or a certain number of an FPS, floating point operations per second, which is how we've measured computing speed for decades.
Right, everyone talks in FLOPS.
But he measured the output in power, 1 terawatt of computing capacity. Why the shift from measuring operations to measuring raw electricity?
Because FLPS have become an irrelevant metric when dealing with planetary scale AI.
Irrelevant. How?
Think about the architecture of modern AI data centers. They're entirely bottlenecked by thermal dynamics and power generation. You can design the fastest, most efficient chip in the world, capable of trillions of operations per second. But if you cannot deliver the megawatts of electricity required to power it, and simultaneously pump enough liquid coolant through the server racks to keep the silicon from melting,
The theoretical speed is meaningless.
exactly, it's totally meaningless. Musk is measuring in terawatts because power consumption is the ultimate, non-negotiable physical constraint of artificial intelligence.
Wow.
To put a terawatt into perspective,
Yeah.
it is roughly equivalent to the total combined electricity consumption of a medium-sized developed nation over a year.
A nation's worth of power.
Yes, TerraFab's goal is to produce enough silicon annually to efficiently process a nation's worth of electrical power into pure mathematical inference.
Okay, so if Musk succeeds in this vertical integration, how does this physically alter the tools and the environment for the modern professional in, say, 5 years? We've talked about AI living on a screen. How does TerraFab change that paradigm?
It moves the AI off the screen and into the physical environment.
Meaning robots.
Essentially, yes. Right now, Apple and Google dominate the software AI space. They control the text, the images, the digital workflows.
Right.
But by controlling an unlimited, vertically integrated supply of compute, Musk is positioning the Tesla SpaceX conglomerate to dominate physical AI.
Physical AI.
Right. For the professional in 5 years, the most advanced AI you interact with might not be a chat app on your phone. It might be a fully autonomous logistics network or an Optimus robot operating in a manufacturing facility, possessing localized compute power that rivals today's massive server farms.
So the industry is fracturing into 2 distinct domains.
Exactly. The digital AI assistants that manage your data and the physical AI agents that manipulate the real world.
It's like a massive fleet of high-performance sports cars.
Stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Right. The new Siri, these autonomous agents, they are the sports cars, but they're stuck in traffic because there isn't enough pavement, the chips, and memory. And TerraFab is Musk's attempt to pave a multi-lane superhighway.
That's the perfect way to look at it.
But let's bring this macro-level infrastructure back down to the micro-level reality of your home office.
Where the actual work gets done.
Right, because you can have the most advanced software in the world running on iOS 27, and you can have terawatts of compute humming away in a Texas data center.
But if the local network in your house is dropping packets, none of it matters.
Exactly. If the driveway to your house is blocked, you can't access the multi-lane superhighway. This brings us to the third and final bottleneck, the local connectivity backbone.
Which people constantly underestimate. The absolute reliance on cloud hybrid models makes local network stability a mission-critical requirement for professional work now.
And to solve this, MSI has just released the Roami BE Pro Mesh system.
Mm.
This hardware is explicitly designed to eliminate home Wi-Fi congestion by utilizing the brand new Wi-Fi 7 protocol.
Wi-Fi 7 is a massive leap.
It is. The Roami BE Pro is built to handle massive simultaneous data loads. We are talking multiple 4K HDR streams, dozens of smart home sensors, and the constant high-bandwidth cloud AI pings generated by devices running iOS 27.
All at the same time.
Yep. It does this via multiple broadcast points that can be linked either via hardwired Ethernet or wireless backhaul, all dynamically optimized by the MSI software.
And they have solutions for different setups too, right?
Yeah, for users in smaller homes or dense apartments, they've released the Roami BE Lite, which utilizes a specific feature called puncturing to literally punch through the Wi-Fi interference of your neighbors.
That puncturing feature is fascinating.
And they haven't forgotten older hardware either. You can retrofit existing systems using the MSI Herald BE9400 Wi-Fi 7 PCIe card for desktop towers, or the BE6500 USB adapter for laptops.
See, it is vital to connect the physics of Wi-Fi 7 directly to the productivity workflows we discussed earlier.
Break that connection down for us.
Okay, when your iPad highlights a contract and Siri routes that query to Google Gemini, it requires an instantaneous zero-latency handshake with the cloud. Wi-Fi 6 was primarily designed to handle a high volume of devices efficiently, just keeping a lot of things connected. But Wi-Fi 7 is fundamentally engineered to handle a high volume of devices that demand massive, instantaneous, unbroken data streams.
The unbroken part being key.
Exactly. If your local network suffers even a micro drop in connectivity, your AI agent loses context, the app intent fails to execute, and your workflow basically grinds to a halt.
Okay, wait. I need you to clarify this.
Sure.
Because the tech industry pushes a quote-unquote revolutionary new Wi-Fi standard every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
We constantly hear about wider bands and faster speeds.
Yeah, the marketing hype is relentless.
It really is. So why is Wi-Fi 7 actually a mandatory upgrade for a professional heavily utilizing AI rather than just another expensive marketing gimmick to sell $50 USB adapters?
That's a very fair question. The difference lies in a new mechanical feature called multi-link operation, or MLO, combined with that preamble puncturing you mentioned regarding the Roami BE Lite.
Okay, what does that actually mean in practice?
In legacy Wi-Fi systems, even Wi-Fi 6, a router establishes a connection with your device on a single frequency band.
Yeah.
Typically 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz.
Right, you usually pick one.
Right. And if your neighbor's router starts broadcasting on that exact same channel and causes interference, your router has to aggressively hit the brakes, abandon the channel, and renegotiate a connection on a different frequency.
Which creates that lag.
Yes.
Yeah.
It creates latency spikes. It's exactly why your video calls freeze for 2 seconds.
Okay. And how does preamble puncturing change that physics?
Preamble puncturing allows the Wi-Fi 7 router to dynamically slice up a single wide channel. Imagine a wide lane on a highway.
Okay.
If there's debris, let's say interference from a neighbor blocking just a small portion of that lane, older routers would force your car to completely exit the highway and find a new road.
Which takes time.
Exactly. But with puncturing, the Roami BE Lite simply identifies the exact frequency block where the interference exists, digitally punctures it out of the transmission, and seamlessly routes your data around the debris using the remaining clean spectrum in that exact same lane.
Oh, wow. It literally weaves the signal through the interference in real time.
Yes. Combine that with MLO, which allows your phone to connect to the 5 gigahertz and the new 6 gigahertz bands, simultaneously basically sending data down both pipes at once, and you achieve near zero latency.
Both pipes at once. That makes sense.
Right. And for an AI agent that relies on instantaneous cloud verification to read your screen securely, near zero latency is not a premium feature. It is the baseline requirement.
So we have mapped the complete removal of the bottlenecks here.
We really have.
We've seen how Apple is removing the software friction by transforming a voice assistant into a persistent, screen-aware agent capable of executing cross-app workflows natively. We've seen how Tesla is attempting to shatter the global hardware constraint by bringing silicon fabrication, packaging, and testing into a single, massive, vertically integrated terafab facility.
Shifting the metric of progress from FOPS to terawatts.
Exactly. And we've seen how MSI is clearing the final mile of data delivery using the advanced radio physics of Wi-Fi 7 and preamble puncturing to ensure your local network can handle the massive throughput these AI systems require.
It is a profound top-to-bottom restructuring of the professional digital environment. I mean, the tools are becoming faster, the hardware is becoming more centralized, and local infrastructure is becoming infinitely more resilient.
So to crystallize all of this for your daily workflow, here are the 3 most important takeaways you need to remember from this deep dive. Number 1, Siri is no longer just a passive utility.
Not at all.
With iOS 27, it becomes a persistent, localized AI agent with a standalone interface, combining the strict security of on-device processing with the immense open web knowledge of Google Gemini.
Yep, the hybrid brain.
Number 2, workflow integration is the true revolution. Features like Ask Siri and App Intents will fundamentally accelerate how you synthesize data,
Right.
allowing you to cross-reference private documents and draft responses natively without ever breaking your focus or switching applications.
The efficiency gains are just going to be staggering.
And number 3, software is nothing without the physical infrastructure. From Elon Musk's terawatt-scale terafab initiative to the absolute necessity of upgrading your home office to a Wi-Fi 7 mesh network like the MSI Ryomi.
The AI revolution is entirely dependent on brute force, physical hardware scaling.
Exactly.
And as we close, I really want to leave you with a final thought to consider regarding the sheer autonomy these systems are being granted right now.
Oh, this is the big question.
It is. As your operating system via Apple's App Intents gains the root-level ability to see, read, comprehend, and autonomously scroll through every single application on your screen. The definition of the tool fundamentally changes. The line between a helpful assistant and an autonomous digital clone begins to blur rapidly. As these systems learn your specific semantic workflows, at what point do you stop actively using your device to do your job and simply start supervising it?
A shift from operator to manager.
Exactly.
That is the exact transition we are tracking. Well, if you want to stay ahead of this curve and actually see these new interfaces, the standalone apps, and the hardware we discussed in action, make sure you check out the Tech News TLDR YouTube channel for our daily video updates where we break all of this down visually. Keep optimizing your workflow, secure your local networks, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.